Welcome to the Linux Bootcamp from casual Linux user to kernel hacker. And we're going to introduce ourselves now. We're really excited to be at OSCON this weekend. Thank you so much to everybody for coming along early on Monday, the very first day. Thank you so much.
You're up.
Oh, so I'll start off. So my name's Tammy Butow. You can find me on Twitter at Tammy Butow. I'm Australian, you can see I love kangaroos. And I live in New York now, so I'm getting used to the snow. In the middle picture, I live in the East Village. It's been a really big adventure to go from living in Australia where it's warm and sunny to now living in the middle of New York in Manhattan. This is a picture of my team on the right-hand side. We all love Linux so much. I work at DigitalOcean, and I work with a team of Linux system administrators and trust and safety analysts. And also, I love to go to hackathons, and I love helping more girls at the hackathons deploy their code to the cloud. So this is me at an event here with all of the girls that were at Pen Apps, creating apps and deploying them to the cloud. That was really, really cool. And I'm really excited to be in Portland. We've been here for a little bit working remote, and it's such a cool city. So yeah, we have tips to share. We'd love to hear your tips too.
So I'm Jessie Frazelle. I work at Docker. I am on the core team, which means we maintain the Docker repo itself, which is like fixing bugs, merging pull requests. We get like over 100 a week, so it's a little out of control sometimes. And doing releases, stuff like that. This is a really funny picture of me. It's a nerd. And yeah. Portland's been cool so far. We've just been hanging out. Everyone's super chill, which is not something that I'm used to.
Hi everyone, my name's Georgi Knox. I'm a back-end software engineer. I work at Bitly. I'm also Australian, and I live in New York City as well. I really like Linux too. I think the bits that I like the most is learning about the kernel and doing like some kernel programming, because it's just so different than what I do in my day-to-day job. So I'm also really excited to be here. I haven't checked out Portland yet. I only arrived last night. So, oh yes, here's my funny photo. So I'm really excited to be here. So what we're going to do to get started is to install some stuff. So earlier on, we asked people to come down and collect a USB if they haven't managed to download the 3 files that they'll need. So that's the VirtualBox and Vagrant and the Vagrant Ubuntu image. So if there's anyone who hasn't managed to install those or download those files, we're going to install them in a second. So the installation instructions are on GitHub. So if you'd all like to just open up a browser on Mac or Windows and go to bit.ly/Linux-bootcamp. Cool, so this is where you should all be. So the first thing to do is install VirtualBox and Vagrant. So if everyone just wants to go ahead and do that. It shouldn't take too long. It's going to give you just a couple of minutes to do that for those who haven't gotten there yet. Absolutely. So it's bit.ly/Linux-bootcamp. So what we're going to do now is check that Vagrant was installed properly. So I'm going to open up, I'm on Mac, and I'm going to open up the terminal. So Windows is going to be a little bit different, but you can find the terminal in Applications Utilities. So I'm just going to double click that. And just check that Vagrant is installed by typing vagrant-version. Oh yeah. vagrant -- version. And it should return something like vagrant 1.7.2. So we know that vagrant's installed. So that's good. The next thing that we're going to do is actually set up the Ubuntu vagrant image. So either you should have downloaded the really big 1.5 gig zip file or gotten it off the USB drive. So I have downloaded that. It's in my downloads folder. So all I'm going to do here is unzip the uncompress the directory. And you should see a folder called vagrant_Ubuntu, and inside it will be a file called package.box. All of these instructions that I'm saying out here are also on the GitHub page, so if you want to just kind of go ahead and read them and do them yourself, you're welcome to do that. So reading the instructions, it says that we need to change into that directory. So one handy tip that you can do, so cd is change drive or change directory. That's a command that you can run on the terminal. You can actually drag from your Finder the location that you want to use. That's sometimes pretty handy than having to type it all in. So I'm going to change into that vagrant_Ubuntu directory. And if I list out the contents, I can see that package.box is there. So looking at our instructions, the next thing that we need to do is run this command vagrant box add Ubuntu desktop package.box. So I'm just going to copy that from the GitHub page and paste that into my terminal. I have an extra little command on the end, -- force. The only reason I have that is because I've already installed this a bunch of times and it just kind of overwrites it. So you don't need to put the -- force on the end. So if I run that, and everyone should be following along. Again, put your hand up if anything doesn't make sense. Cool. So my package docs box worked. Just want to get a show of hands. Is everyone sort of up to where I am? Everyone following? Few hands. Cool. Mostly? Yep. Is anyone stuck? Cool. Is yours still downloading, your RPM? Okay. Jesse, would you be able to assist? Is anyone else lost? Or all good? Cool. Okay. Awesome. So the next thing that we need to do is run a vagrant init command. Again, I'm just going to copy this from the GitHub page, vagrant init Ubuntu desktop, and type that into my terminal. And if I read the message, it says a vagrant file has been placed in this directory. You are now ready to vagrant up. So if I take another look at that, the contents of this directory, I can see that there's now a vagrant file has been created. So there's one, we actually need to edit that vagrant file. So I use a program called VI to do that, but you can just, you can do whatever you want. So you can actually just open that vagrant file up with something like Sublime or even just text edit, whatever you feel comfortable with. And all you need to do is open that up, scroll like right down to the end of this file, and add in you need to just add in these three lines here. All that's doing is just saying we actually want to run our version of Ubuntu with a graphical user interface. So if I go back to my terminal. Yeah, it is. You can also uncomment it. Exactly. So whatever you want to do. And I just need to save that file. And I've put like what it needs to look like on the GitHub page. And now the final command we just need to run is vagrant up. Before I run that, I want everyone to also just open up the VirtualBox program, and that'll just be under your applications directory. So open up VirtualBox, just have that sort of hanging on the side, run Vagrant up, and this is going to take a few minutes. Yeah, it's a really good question. So Vagrant is this really handy tool that allows you to, I guess, make development environments like portable. So rather than have everybody install Ubuntu from scratch, we pre-installed it and created like this sort of Vagrant image, I guess. And you can use VirtualBox to, I guess, spin that image up, if that makes sense. So we've already installed a whole bunch of stuff on this Ubuntu image so that you didn't have to. So yeah, it's just a handy tool.
So similar images for other OS?
Sorry?
So similar images for other OS?
Yeah, there is. So actually Vagrant has a whole directory of like images that are already done that you can just download and get and like sort of spin up really easily. Cool. So you'll start to notice that the screen pops up and the operating system is sort of, booting up here. And all of a sudden I have this Ubuntu desktop, which is really cool. So that's what using Vagrant has allowed us to do. And that's what putting those enable GUI things into the Vagrant file, it means that we could actually have this graphical user interface here. So looking at, if I switch to the VirtualBox program now, you can see that there's this, on the left-hand side, it says Vagrant Ubuntu default 147, blah, 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 and it's running. So it's saying like, we've now just created a virtual image like of Ubuntu. So that's where like VirtualBox sort of ties in there. So just another thing to note is that the username and password are both Vagrant. So if it sort of screen locks on you and asks you for a password, then the password is Vagrant. So I'm going to just talk a little bit about what Linux actually is. And then I'm going to hand over to Tammy. And when I hand over to Tammy, I'm going to run around and try and help those people who are still stuck. Okay, so what is Linux? Well, we all know it's an operating system, but it's an open operating system. And what that means is that it's developed collaboratively. So a keynote speaker that I listened to at a conference I went to a couple of months ago said that any meaningful technology has a movement around it. And for Linux, that's absolutely open source. And what this means is that no one company is solely responsible for its development or ongoing support. Companies that contribute to the development of Linux share in research and development costs with their partners and competitors. And it's this sharing that has resulted in a really large and efficient ecosystem. So OSCON is mostly about hip new technologies, but Linux is really old. In fact, it's over 20 years old. And as of today, the latest stable Linux kernel is at version 4.12. It's been contributed to by over 8,000 developers from 800 companies and is comprised of over 15 million lines of code. It's updated by 10 patches a day, 7 days a week, and a new release comes out every 2 to 3 months. And this is a much faster turnaround time than, say, Windows, for example, where new releases only come out every few years. So where did it all begin? In 1991, Linus Torvalds was a student in Finland, and he started a project to build his own operating system kernel, which at the time only worked on a really specific set of hardware. He built it as an alternative to the Minix operating system, which was based off of Unix, and it was a popular operating system within the education environment. His project started to get noticed and soon became known as Linux. A year later, he released his kernel under the General Public License, GPL, and this is what really made it possible to begin building this worldwide community of developers. By combining the Linux kernel with other system components, such as graphical desktops, software package management, and user management, numerous other developers created complete systems called Linux distributions. By the end of 1994, Linux version 1.0 had been released. And legend has it that Linus chose Tux, the penguin, as a Linux mascot because he was bitten by a penguin when he traveled to Australia. And like, I always knew we have a reputation for dangerous creatures, but I didn't really think penguins was one of them. And as the Linux kernel continued to grow in popularity, larger companies began to offer more and more support, such as Google, Oracle, Intel, and Netscape. And as of today, Linux really is everywhere. The Linux Foundation has stated that Linux powers over half the servers on the internet, which is a lot, and it powers things like the New York Stock Exchange, TVs, Android smartphones, and also nearly all of the world's supercomputers. It's also a popular choice for things like routers and firewalls and Raspberry Pis. So today, we've just gone through the process of installing via a Vagrant image Ubuntu, and that's what we'll be using for the rest of the tutorial. So I'm going to hand over to Tammy now.
So now I'm going to go through some really fun things that I love, which are Linux Easter eggs. So these are just some really cute things that I think are fun to play around with, just to start things off. So one of them, if you go into VirtualBox, and then you just type in terminal apt-get help, then you'll see down there it says that this apt has super cow powers. Just going to resize this. Yep. Has anyone seen this before? No? Okay, a few people maybe. And then if you type apt-get moo, like give that a go. It's like this cute little cow. Have you mooed today? I love this about Linux, that it's so much fun. There's all these really cool hidden things that are really fun. And I think that's the really great thing about open source, that it's created by a community and everyone can just join together and create what they love. So there's another thing called cowsay that you can try out. So sudo apt-get install cowsay. So we'll try that first. Sudo apt-get install cowsay. Shouldn't take too long, but depends. So this is us installing cowsay, the package. And then we can say cowsay-f ghostbusters.cow, and you can really put any word at the end. Pretty cute. And then it's like, I'll just zoom out so you can see it. But it's a little Ghostbuster saying OSCON. So this is just some really fun things to start off in the morning, some cute little Easter eggs. Has anyone tried this before, cowsay with Ghostbusters? No? Yeah, so yeah, this is just us installing a package called cowsay, and yeah, we can just say use any word. So you could just change this and say hello, and it'll say hello up the top as well. So just like a fun little Easter egg that's hidden there. Another one that I really love is Figlet. Has anyone seen this before? No? Okay. Sudo apt-get install Figlet. So sudo is like the super user, so root privileges, and then apt-get to pull down that package and install the package, and the package is called Figlet. And then if I press enter, then it will install it. I already had it installed, so that's why it says it's already the newest version. And then with Figlet, what you can do is you can say Figlet and then any word that you like. So I can say OSCON is great, and then it just writes it out there. I just think that's really fun. You can write out anything. Oops. Oops. Yep. Okay, I'll stop now. But I could do that for ages. I just think it's really fun. You know, you could use these and make cool images or something. It's awesome. Make really cool messages when you open up your box. And then now I'd like to talk to you about the command line. So this will be more of an introduction to Linux. And yeah, we're really going from casual user to kernel hacking right down the end at the end of the day. So this is more of the foundation knowledge. So the reason why the command line is so awesome is it's really, really powerful. If you were trying to do things with a graphical interface, you know, trying to find files and moving things around and copying things, it just takes a lot more time, a lot longer. It takes a lot longer to be able to do that. Whereas, say if you have like a file with, you know, so much data, and you can use the command line to be able to find elements within that data. You can sort things, you can look for files, you can create files. It's really, really great because it's so powerful and it makes everything so much faster. And that's when it comes into things like, you know, writing scripts and stuff like that. Really great skill to be able to have when you're working with Linux. So let's really dive in. First off, we're going to talk about how do you get help when you're using Linux and you're not really sure what does this command do, how does it work. Then you can use the manual pages, so the man pages. We'll also go through some basic commands. Yep, what's the question? Yeah. So basic commands like pwd, print working directory, cd, change directory, mkdir, make directory, ls is to like list the files in your directory. You can search for files using the find command. You can work with files by using things like cat, which is concatenate, usually used to put two files together, but often people will just use it to display the contents of a file, less to be able to see the contents of a file in a nice format, and where you can go through that file contents with a spacebar. And then tail, where you can see the bottom of a file, you can specify how many lines, and then head, where you see the top of a file, specify how many lines. And then managing packages like we already went through, where we talked about how do you apt-get things like cowsay or figlet, and we'll also talk a bit about vim, which is what I use to edit text files. So the first thing I'm going to do is just talk about the man pages. I really love the man pages. Like lately I've been trying really hard to memorize things instead of having to look in the man pages, but having that there is so awesome compared to having to Google things, because if you just look at the man page, then you'll see everything there and you won't Google and see all these different answers. You just actually look at the man page and it tells you exactly how it works. So it's so helpful. So if we write man vim, then we can see what is vim. Okay, cool. Like it's VI improved, a programmer's text editor, and it tells you all about how vim works. There's a really nice description, and it'll tell you different things like what kind of options can you give. So there's a lot of different features here just for vim, for the text editor, which is pretty cool. And then if you want to exit a man page, you just press Q. Like it says down the bottom, it's helpful. Explains how to do that. Okay. So first off, what I want to do is go through just some basic commands. So what we're going to do is we're going to just list what's in our directory to start. So we'll just do that first. So if you type ls and then enter, you can see right now you've got a few different folders there, which are for me in blue, and some files as well. And then what we'll do is we'll make a directory called OSCON. And now if I go ls again, then I'll see that there is a directory there called OSCON. It's great. Is this too small to read? Should I make it bigger, or is it okay? Okay, cool. And then next what we're going to do is we'll go cd, because we're going to change directory, and we're going to go into the OSCON folder. Now if I type ls, you'll see there's nothing in there because it's an empty folder. It doesn't have any files in there yet. So next what we're going to do is we'll just do pwd, and it'll show us where we are. So you can see there, home/vagrant/oscon. That's printing the working directory. So handy for when you're just moving around and you need to know, oh, where am I right now? I'm not really sure. So you can just use that. and then touch portland.txt, txt. That's just going to create a file. And if I go ls, then you'll see that there's portland.txt now in that OSCON folder, which is pretty cool. So now what I'd love to do is install Vim. Oops. Oh, whoops. So you have to write sudo, just because of the rights of the user, vagrant. And now I'd love to show you, if you haven't used Vim before, there's this really fun game. I'm not sure if the internet will work great for it, but we'll just see if it does work. Has anyone seen this game before? Yeah? Cool. So yeah, if it does load, it's this really fun game where you can navigate around this world, and the keys that you use to navigate around the world are the same keys that you would use to move around within Vim. So it's a really nice way to learn how to use Vim if you haven't used it before. And yeah, it looks like it might not load that great. It's supposed to have all these green little boxes of grass and things. See if it loads, maybe not. But I do recommend trying this out at home if you haven't used Vim and you'd like to learn. Oh, there you go. So yeah, this is what it looks like. And so, for example, if you want to go that way, H. If you want to go to the right, L. If you want to go up, K. If you want to go down, J. So that's pretty cool because it teaches you how to move around. And then there's all these different levels that you can go through. So that's really fun, and I really like it. And yeah, I'd love to get hands up. Who has used Vim before? Awesome. That's really cool, because we weren't really sure. So we're like, do we have to go through this? Not really sure, but that's great. There's so many hands up. Okay, but yeah, if you have a friend that's like, oh, I don't know how to use Vim and I'd really love to learn, then I recommend giving them this. Yeah, it's really fun. See, it said, yippee. It's just really cute. And also if you've got kids, what a cool way to teach them more about Linux. Okay, so the next thing is I'd love to get you to install Nginx. So sudo apt-get install Nginx. And Nginx is a web server. If this isn't working for you because the internet is a little bit slower, that's okay, because all of this information is on the GitHub repo, and you would be able to do it later when you do have the internet. But I'll just give you a quick demo to show you how it works. See if it works for me. So with Nginx, it's a web server similar to Apache. Sometimes people use Apache or they use Nginx, or there's many others that you could use. And with that, I just said, start the Nginx service. So I want Nginx to be running right now. And then what I want to do is also see what my IP address is for my vagrant box. So I can see there it's 10.0.2.15. So if I go to Firefox, I did load this up earlier, then it says, welcome to Nginx on Ubuntu. So I'm running that on VirtualBox, using Vagrant. So that's just how so this is your very first index.html page of you running a web server using Nginx, which is a pretty cool example if you haven't done that before. Oops. Okay. The next thing I want to do, since we have so many people who have experience with Vim, that's awesome. So what I'd like you to do is go into Vim, use Vim, and just type vim portland.txt and create a file, and just give it 3 lines of text. Doesn't matter what that is.
You can use VI too if you can't install Vim because of the internet.
Yeah. And then to exit vim and save it, :WQ. So now what we'll do is we'll just type less portland.txt. Another cool thing, if you've been using Linux for a while, you'll know this sort of stuff, but if you just press tab, then it will finish off the word for you. You don't have to type everything. So yeah, that just less will then show you Portland is great. It's a fun place to walk around. We love all the food trucks. And then you press Q to exit less. Another thing to try is head -1. Does anyone know what this will do? What will it do? Yep, just the first line. So Portland is great. And then tail, the last 2 lines. It's a fun place to walk around. We love all the food trucks. So obviously this sort of thing is really useful if you're looking at logs. Maybe you've got some services running and you want to look through the logs and you only want to print like the last 5 lines of your logs, then that's really handy. But I just thought it would be fun to make a cute little text file. Another thing is when you're looking at really big files, less can come in handy. So if we go less/edc/group, that's an interesting example. And then you can see there, if you press spacebar, then you'll be able to go through all of that. And it's really nice because it takes you through without everything. If you didn't use less, then it would just like pop everything out on the screen. But using less, you can go through with a spacebar, which is nice. And then Q to quit. And then another thing we'll do now is just to concatenate 2 files. So we'll just type vim oscon.txt. And then after we've got that file, then what we're going to do is we're going to connect, we're going to create a new file which has the contents from portland.txt and oscon.txt. So this is like redirection. Oops. And then if I go cat, then it will have everything in that one file. And so that's if you want to join the contents of 2 files together. So next I'd love to talk about processes. Processes are one of the fundamental abstractions in Unix operating systems. The other fundamental abstraction being files, which is something that we've already gone through a lot now. So on our OS we have many programs running, and programs introduce the concept of processes. And a process is just a program in execution. Linux is multi-user and multitasking operating system. Whenever a program is executed, a new process is created. A process also consumes resources like the file system, memory, or other CPU resources. And this gives need to the rise of process management in Linux. Some of the things we're going to talk about are types of processes, managing processes using PS and top, and killing processes. But first I'd like to talk about the memory layout. So a process can be broadly defined into the following segments. First we have the stack, data that is local to a function, heap, memory that is dynamically requested, data, global and static members, and then text, program instructions such as hard-coded strings and constant values. So first let's have a look at the man page for top, just to understand more about what top is. Oops. So you can see there, top displays Linux processes, and it's a program that provides dynamic a real view of a running system. It can display system summary information as well as a list of processes and threads currently being managed by the Linux kernel. So now we're just going to run top by writing top. Also to clear your screen, if you want, you can just press Control L. So now we're running top, You can see there that we have all of these different processes running. You can see the percentage of CPU, the percentage of memory. So that's pretty cool. So we can see that Vagrant's running there, and all of the different PID numbers are like the process identifiers. So some of the things that I think are pretty handy is that you can actually kill processes from within top if you press K and then you choose the PID number. And then you can choose the signal as well, because there are many different signals. So if I did want to kill a process, I could press K there, and it says PID to signal kill, default PID 22657. So I could then write in the number of what I wanted to kill, and then I could then also choose a signal. If I wanted to just use the default, then it'll be 15, and that's like a nice kill, and it'll look very different to if you do something like kill 9, which is like a force kill, and it might not look as nice. Say if we killed top right now, and we did a kill with a 15 or just default, then it would close nicely and it would look great. If we killed top with a 9, then it would the screen would look all strange and weird because it's a force kill. Oops. Oops, oh no. There we go. So next I wanted to show you man PS. Oops. So PS reports a snapshot of the current processes that are running, and that's pretty cool. So you can just see active processes, which will be very different to what we saw before. So you can see there we have bash running, which is our shell. Oops. And then we also have PS running, because we just ran it then. Oops. So the last thing is that all of these skills are really handy for the cloud. So all of the skills there around being able to manage a Linux server. The only thing extra really to be able to then start using cloud infrastructure is to just SSH into the box that you create on the cloud. So if you would like to create a server, this link will give you $10, so that's like 2 months where you don't have to pay for it, do.co/TammyShark, and you can try out a cloud server. And that's pretty fun if you want to then take your Linux skills to the cloud if you haven't done that before. But I'm sure many of you have. But yeah, it's really fun. And we also have some, so when you create a server on DigitalOcean, you just get the IP address. But if you also want to create a server, add Nginx, have some files running, and set up DNS to then have a domain name, then Gandhi's also been really nice, and they've given us some domain name cards, which you can come and grab during the break or at the end. And if you register those today, they'll be really cool, and you can get a free domain name too. So you can take the skills that you learnt this morning, set up servers on the cloud, and then also set up DNS, which is really fun. And there's some great tutorials online to help you with that in our community. So yeah, these are great foundation skills. So thank you so much. This has been just a basic foundation class to just make sure everyone's up to speed. And then we're going to go into the kernel programming and also some work on file systems next. So yeah, thank you so much.